Hello, and welcome back to the Product-Led Festival. A big thank you to our partners and speakers for helping us feature amazing content over the 3 days, looking at the core building blocks of product-led growth, from discovery and experimentation to metrics and measurement and everything in between. A quick reminder to join our Slack channel to interact with other attendees and join selected speakers for Q&A. You can find the link in the menu at the top of this page. Enjoy the festival.
Introducing themselves very briefly, their name, title, and the last company they worked on, and then we can take it from there. So I'll call the names as they appear for me in Zoom, and I think that's based on the order with which people joined. So the early joiners will be the first to talk today. Veronica, if you can kick us off.
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's nice to meet you. Thank you so much for having me join the session. I'm the Director of Customer Success at Heap. And Heap is a product analytics platform where we help product managers, customer success managers, and really anyone that cares about the analytics on their customers and users. So definitely excited to dig in and kind of give some insights into how our customers think about product metrics and measuring success on their roadmap, feature development, and anything related to product. So thanks again for the time.
Great, thank you. Tara?
I'm on mute. I'm Tara. I'm a senior product manager. I've been in the product management space for, wow, probably going on 10 years now. I'm usually working on SaaS platforms, usually B2B, and sometimes a little mix of infrastructure and backend as well. I recently worked at Wave HQ, but I was part of a layoff, unfortunately. So I am looking for a new opportunity. If anyone wants to send one my way, feel free. But I also, some of you might have heard me say I recently worked with Nala, and we had many conversations about metrics when we worked together at Lupio. So I'm always interested in this topic. Looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you, Tara. Good to see you. Corbin?
Hi. Yeah, thank you everyone for your time today. I'm currently a second year in undergrad, and I'm working at Morgan Stanley this summer.
Great. Maggie?
Hi everyone, Maggie. I'm a director of product at Drift. We do marketing and sales tech SaaS business. And yeah, excited to chat today.
Awesome, thank you. Amin?
Do you know what? Sometimes you can't.
Okay. Amin, I think you're still on mute. If you could introduce yourself.
No, I think I'm on mute.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm technically inclined with over 10 years of experience in product development and business modeling. I recently moved to Canada. I was in Iran, and now with a variety of domain expertise in health industry and entertainment and also payment industry from Iran. Now I am moving to Vancouver, and I'm really happy that I'm here to actually deepen my knowledge and refresh my experience here with you.
Thank you. Priyanka?
I'm Priyanka. I'm an analytics engineer at Lucid Software. Lucid Software has two products, Lucid Chart, some of you might know about it, and Lucid Press. And Lucid Chart is basically a productivity platform. I work on the product and the business operations side. Thank you.
Great. Applacio, if I pronounced that correctly?
Hey, yeah, sorry, it's Andres, actually. Andres Palacio, my last name. Hi, I'm a director of product management in Huge, a digital agency. So I'm in on behalf of digital agencies over here. And yeah, excited to be here as well.
Thank you so much. Holly?
Hi, I'm Holly. I'm a growth advisor for B2B companies, mainly working in the online collaboration space. Previously, I was at Slack.
Great. Bess?
Hi, everyone. I work for LPL Financial, which is basically a financial services company that supports independent advisors. And we're just setting up a new team around product management for some new digital offerings we're standing up. So I'm looking forward to just learning a lot from the conversations we're having here as we build that capability in our organization.
Great. Hanya?
Hey, Hanya here. So I'm officially data engineer at Fidelity Investments, and unofficially, I'm working as a PM in a group which is building an experimentation platform for the whole company.
Great, thank you. Ria? Ria, are you on the line? No, we can't hear you. If you want to check your audio, I'll move to Yasmin and then I'll check with you. Yasmin, please go ahead.
Okay, hi, I'm Yasmin Nizami. I'm a product manager. I work in CIB. It's a bank in Egypt.
Great. Good to hear your voice. Yasmin is also a friend of mine.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Ria, do you think you're back in the audio?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please go ahead.
Oh, awesome. So I'm a product manager with Cognizant. Basically, I have worked with different clients like Levi's and hopefully now with Walmart. Let's see, hopefully. So I'm joining this mainly to understand how we can move plateaued KPIs. Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you, everyone. We seem to have a wonderful, diverse group here, and I'm glad and looking forward to the conversation. So I'll kick us off. So really, the title of the session is a bit saucy because we know that if you have product metrics and they've plateaued, then this is really more of a symptom, not the actual problem. So if you're thinking about general product metrics, so typically what you track or conversion, engagement, and retention. So if you have metrics that are high level in those areas and you're seeing that they're plateauing, what would be some of the reasons you think that this is happening would be the question I start with. So we can use the raise hand feature in Zoom for this question, and for other questions I pose to the group. I would like you to answer very briefly in a few words, 1 or 2 reasons why you think this symptom is occurring, and then I have a few symptoms myself, and then I'll put those together and see which ones the group is more interested in exploring. So who wants to raise their hand and volunteer a cause for this symptom?
Frozen?
No, it's just that I don't know if there's a raise hand feature in this call.
It is if you click on participants. There's a panel that opens on the right there, and there's
awesome. Yeah, I found it. Cool.
Can I volunteer something?
Yes,
so just to repeat the question, the question right now is what is a possible symptom that is underlying plateaued metrics when you see metrics not moving? This was a common problem for me at Lupio, is that in a lot of cases, we were measuring a behavior that we expected to see use in, and then we didn't end up seeing that use. So it was the behavior of the users underlying the metric that we didn't understand as well as we thought.
Okay. Anyone else? Hanya, please go ahead.
Sometimes just environment changes and the product which you have built is not capable of addressing new needs.
So I guess similar to Tara's point that the expected behavior doesn't happen and the metrics do not move?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so user behavior is the reason that's coming up. Anyone wants to either iterate that or mention another reason?
Yeah, I guess I can talk a little bit about some of our customers. I can sometimes think that some of our customers also put product KPIs that are a bit too broad, and so they don't really fully understand like if they are making changes in their product, the overall KPI is not necessarily moving that much, but if there's like a more granular subset, like if they take out a certain percentage of their customer base, or maybe they're looking at like more active or like new users, that can tend to change the overall product metric. So I think just understanding like the segmentation and filtering of that metric is typically where we then see like some additional changes in the KPI.
So this is, I think, the reason that I see more common. So sort of metrics that are not broken down to the right level, or the metrics that are being tracked at too high of a level. So I think we also have Andre, who wants to give us another reason.
Yes, maybe it's part of the same you were talking about, but I've seen in products, for example, there are publishing sites. I've worked a lot with publishing sites, and sometimes conversions, yeah, you have some, but in general, you want to measure engagement. So engagement, when it's not put together the right way, when you are not accounting the right interactions, when you are not weighting the interactions between each other, it's very easy to fall in that rhythm in which metrics are not moving anymore. Because if you are only counting the scroll depth or things like that, is like, yeah, I mean, people is just going to read whatever you're publishing, and that's it. So being creative with how to measure engagement and how realistically measure engagement really helps sometimes.
Yes. So I think the short version of that is that you would have metrics in place, and they're measuring some sort of user behavior, but they're not really related to the business goals that you want to be focusing on. And in the case you mentioned, that would be engagement. Thank you very much. And Tanya, I think you have your hand up. If you want to unmute and participate.
If you, okay, I think I shared my opinion. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So maybe I'll use the lower hand then, so that I don't keep going back to people. That's something I learned. Amin, I think you have your hand up.
Yes, I want to share with you a funny experience that I have. In Iran, we have a payment solution for mobile payment solution, and we tried to launch a marketing campaign, and we saw that our users are going up, and we thought that the campaign is successful. But meanwhile, we understand that the rise of our customer is because of some changing in laws and rules that make the people actually actually some kind of money laundering actions, and make some people to use these solutions because the police cannot track their activities. So that was the reason that people use our solution, and we thought that maybe this is because our campaign, and after that we thought that after we figure out that this is because of the change in rules, and some people from, for example, POS, point of sale devices or ATM devices migrate to mobile solutions because the police cannot track them. So sometimes I think data can mislead us. So that's it. I want to share this funny experience actually.
Yeah. So that's unexpected user behavior, I would say. Thank you, Amin. And I think Carmen, you have your hand up.
Yeah, so I thought maybe an underlying symptom or confounding variable would be competition having a similar product or starting a similar product during the time that during the time of product development.
Right.
Competition, yeah.
Yeah, and that would sway user behavior and take it to another channel. So I think those were all very valid reasons for why you would see plateauing product metrics. So we have two big groups, I think, that came up with the discussions that I will hopefully discuss for the rest of the time. So one of them is having a proper hierarchy for product metrics. And then the second is sort of user behavior, the bucket for user behavior. I think we should start the conversation with the hierarchy because it's sort of at the stage of setting up the metrics, and then the user behavior comes up a little bit more downstream. So a common, I think, problem that I've seen happen is that there are common product metrics and then, or KPIs like Veronica was mentioning, and then these are put in place, but they do not really provide you with a holistic view of the product or with the business rather. The way I see a lot of companies and maybe startups get this wrong is that you should always start with the business goal and what you're trying to achieve rather than, and then break that down in a hierarchy rather than start with the features and then put metrics for the feature and then keep staring at those and trying to move them. So there are a few frameworks that I'll mention and would love to hear experience with these frameworks or others. So the ones that I know to achieve what I just mentioned, which is start with the business and then break that down into metrics that you should follow, are, for example, impact control metrics. So there was a great session yesterday by Jake Walker, who is from MailChimp. He's the director of product analytics. If you're interested in that topic and haven't heard that session and have an all access ticket, I would highly recommend going back and listening to that session. He did an awesome job explaining how in MailChimp they start with the impact metrics. So these would be sort of the lagging business metrics, and then working backwards to control metrics. So the control metrics would be the leading metrics that you would hypothesize would move these lagging metrics. The impact metrics are what matter because they're related to the business, but you have little control over them. But the control metrics are the things that you have more control on, but they in and of themselves do not constitute a business or high business impact. So they did a very good job of explaining the difference between the two and then giving examples to levers of effort that you can put in place in order to move control metrics, in order to move impact metrics. And that I found was very well done. There's also the North Star framework. So you start with a North Star metric and then you think what metrics could be broken down from that North Star and then move those in order to move the North Star metric. So an example for Airbnb, I think their North Star metric, at least last time I read about it, was the number of nights booked. So whatever you do while you're in Airbnb, it should be somehow related to increasing the number of nights booked. But of course, different teams and different features have different metrics that are supposed to be related to that. And I would recommend for those who would want to learn more about breaking down Gibson Biddle, who is the ex-chief product officer, I believe his title was, in Netflix. So he has multiple talks available online and multiple articles as well around if I think the example he commonly uses is when Netflix embarked on personalization. And of course, the business goal there was to increase the amount of time people were watching stuff on Netflix. And as it should be, personalization, even though it's a fancy machine learning technology feature, and there was this overhyped competition for people to participate in it, it was put in place in order to drive this important metrics for the business of Netflix. And what I like about the Netflix experiment is that they actually set a very high standard for their metrics and for their product managers to try and move it. So they said that they don't just want to move the amount of time of people watching on the platform. They want to increase the ratings, the number of times the user would love something so much that they would go and take the second or whatever it is to rate the movie or the show. And that's how they went about building their personalization. And I think, as we probably all know, that has become a very successful experiment. So with this introduction, would love to hear your thoughts, specifically experiences around breaking down the metrics, product metrics from business goals. Again, we'll use the raise hand feature if anyone wants to start us off. Seems I said all there is to say about product hierarchy, so that's, oh, Veronica, yes.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm happy to talk about this a bit. It's something that we think about a lot at Heap with our customers. I actually have like a slide I can share, which just might be more visual, if that's okay with you.
Yes, please.
Oh, I think it disabled attendee screen sharing, so maybe I can just share this out after. But so yeah, so when we think about product metrics, it's definitely with customers, we want to help explicitly standardize like what are the levels of metrics in the product, but also evaluating how that impacts product changes. And a lot of the times product managers are kind of working in their own team and aren't necessarily always being asked like, well, how is this going to impact, you know, our like new business goal for the quarter, or how is that going to impact our like churn rate for this year if, you know, you build this feature. So we've been doing a lot of work with customers and also internally just to find a better framework for how to actually tie like the work you do as a PM to the business goals. And a lot of the common challenges we also see is that tying those product changes, it's typically like a single user flow. And it's hard to like see how that really ties to the top level business metrics. So the way we think about it is there's typically like 3 layers of metrics. So typically at the kind of like PM level is kind of like the workflow success. So like the example would be like maybe you're doing like a setup flow completion, and you want to understand like how to increase that setup flow completion time over time and like how that actually moves the business metrics. So on top of that, you might say, okay, well, how does this impact like paid feature adoption? So if they're able to actually like increase their setup flow completion, then like paid feature adoption might increase. And then what is the business metric, kind of the third level above that that you're influencing? And in this example would be revenue. So I think a lot of this framework and how we're thinking about this is also just relevant to how you kind of work as a PM and like doing your analytics and then also reporting back to the business on kind of what that like business level metric is that you're trying to move.
Okay. That's great. And I think actually the sort of not being too familiar with the use case that you mentioned, but my thoughts go to doing some experimentation in order to move these product management metrics, because even though it seems you're doing a great job layering the metrics and breaking them down, starting with the business metrics, the adoption of workflow seems to me to be a little bit too high level, or could use, which you might be already doing, could use some control metrics itself. So that I think would be a good segue to experimentation, which I wanted to discuss today. But before I do, wanted to see if anyone else had thoughts around hierarchy and breaking down metrics before we change topic. Andre, please go ahead.
Yes, I think there's one, like the breaking down that you mentioned before. I'm used to do the business goal and decomposing that way. I was on that call yesterday about impact metrics and control metrics, and I think I could start applying some of that. I really liked it. But then something that has happened to me in the past, when metrics are not moving, even if I have that like broken down into the specific actions I want to, is probably move to user cohort level reporting. And that's something that really has helped me in the past. And is that you might have the same metric and it's moving or growing consistently over time, very steady, no matter what you do. Breaking down that into user level or user cohort level reporting really helps you understand what might be in those layers. So for example, if what is actually driving that growth is a specific type of user cohort, then you might find some strategies to make it to help it move faster in other cohorts at the same time. So identifying signals that can get you to that. Sometimes I've been behind products that honestly I haven't had the greatest profiling information, so you have to be very creative about how you're going to do that cohort level reporting. But it really helps. It really helps identifying those cohorts and seeing how they move. That can really help you unblock that plateaued metric and understand how you can push it forward.
This is such a wonderful point, I think. I think one of the reasons, I think cohort analysis is a key. I think that you could use in a lot of use cases to work with not just plateauing metrics, but I mean, even successful metrics and even metrics that are dipping. You want to understand what's causing success or what's causing failure, and then try and move people between the different cohorts, obviously to the one that you see constitutes success. The issue I see in cohort analysis in at least North American startups is access to data. So usually startups, because they do not have the biggest budget to assign to data infrastructure, you end up having to go through heaps and loops in order to do cohort analysis. And I think there's just so much insights buried in the data, especially if we're using averages. So Gibson Biddle says that averages are like the worst product metrics you could have, but we all have to do averages, at least in some cases. And cohort analysis would be key if you're doing averages specifically. So Amin, I think you have your hand raised up if you want to join.
Yes, actually I think that the first step to setting a metric is to know how things may affect your business value. For that, I usually use causal diagram. You can search on Google and see what it is. And it is under the subject of system thinking, actually. I try to actually exercise how things may affect each other and know the exact root of behavior. So I think if we can understand the exact root of one behavior, then we can set metrics accordingly. So I think causal diagrams may help product managers in setting metrics.
Right. Which I think would be yet another good segue for us to move to user behavior. So I think that there was a little bit of sentiment in the room that we sometimes put a metric in place and then you don't see it moving, and the hypothesis is the user behavior did not come out as we expected. But this seems to me to be actually a product management success rather than otherwise, because you learn something, and learning something about how the users actually behave or how a feature performs in the wild is something that's very, very valuable, and it's something that no matter how much research you do and user interviews and whatnot before you launch a feature, there is nothing compared to actually learning by having a feature in the wild and iterating from there. Hence the MVP framework and all of these product management practices. So does anyone have an experience of setting a metric and then to measure some sort of user behavior and then not having come out as expected, and what they did to change that? If yes, please use the raise hand. If not, we can talk a little bit more around experimentation, which Veronica brought up. Tara, please go ahead.
I think you're familiar with this scenario, but when I was at Lupio and Nala and I were colleagues, I worked on a part of the platform that included a feature. What's that? Oh,
Sorry, I think someone is not on mute, so if you can mute yourself, it would be great.
Sorry.
No,
Okay.
no problem.
This part of the platform was extensively developed and something I inherited, and it was called reviews, and it was where a client would go in and frequently on an incremental basis review their content, make sure it was accurate, and it was notoriously poorly used. And our suspicion at first, and because this was true, was that it was because it was a poor user experience, and the usability of it was incredibly bad by any standards. It was a lot of clicks, it was difficult to navigate, and it was just super tedious. So we, after getting tons of feedback from customers and data and research and interviews about their business process, made a number of changes to this part of the platform. And we expected to see a ton more usage based on the fact that this was entirely based around user feedback. And we saw a tiny increase, like little, not where near enough to justify the amount of attention that was paid to it. And so what we started talking about afterwards was, regardless of what the customer is telling you they want or even what they need, there's a deeper investigation that we didn't quite get to have there, which was, what is the root of the behavior as to why someone isn't using this feature? They say that it's something they want, they're willing to pay for improvements to it, and yet it kind of sat there stagnant. And we did take a look at the data too and said, are we wrong? Are we just measuring the wrong things? No, we were right. Nobody was using this part of the platform. As a PM, that was a bit of a struggle for me because there was a lot of push to work on it. And I was getting to the point where I wanted to be honest, direct my efforts elsewhere to other parts of the platform that I thought would absolutely contribute more directly to revenue. And so that's another part we don't talk about with metrics, is that sometimes there is a little bit of influence coming from, you know, your leadership team or your management that wants to see a certain direction. I'll be honest with you in saying that I didn't necessarily ever resolve that problem while I was there. I ended up leaving the company, so I'm not sure what happened with the reviews page. But my position towards the end was sometimes the behavior you're seeing is reflective of how someone uses your platform, and it's questionable as to how much and time and effort you put into making users change their way of behavior. So I don't know if anyone has a similar type of scenario where they pushed forward to the end and they saw that eventual spike. In this case, it was a case where we wanted to direct our efforts to somewhere else that we thought would be more productive. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you for sharing. And I think I would recommend, if you're interested in managing product ideas sort of that come from the top down and not necessarily through the regular hierarchy, we've been discussing a talk yesterday by Paolo Lacci, and he's the director of product in Kiwi. Its title was Product Discovery at Scale, and he had some interesting thoughts there if anyone wants to listen to that as well. Any other thoughts before we move to experimentation? Okay, so I'll pick up on the example Veronica mentioned, Veronica, just because it's a good example. So excuse myself by doing that. So if you have a metric such as you want to increase the adoption, it seems you have a productivity tool and it has some workflows, and then you want to increase the adoption of the workflows by users, or the use of workflows by the users. It seems to me that one way to go about that would be to set up some hypotheses. So you set up some hypotheses as to how the users are benefiting from the platform or using the platform. And then you can create some experiments that would validate these hypotheses. So silly examples, say for example, people usually do set up this workflow first thing in the morning. So maybe sending them a reminder. That's the hypothesis. So maybe the experiment would be sending them an email reminder at a certain time in the morning, and then putting a metric to see how many people found that beneficial. So that would be opening the email and then clicking through the email and going through the platform. Would be just one silly example of an experiment that you could put in place. The problems that I have seen regarding experimentation is that I think outside product management teams, other teams are wary of experimentation. So you have pushback around, oh, but then the experiment might fail. Then that would translate to you showing something to the user and then retracting it. And I think product managers need to do a lot of education in their organizations to say, well, this is exactly how you want it to happen, because otherwise you will never know what actually benefits the users, especially in B2B, where you have different personas of buyers and users, and you really want to connect to your users who are sometimes not even on customer success calls or are surprised by the product coming into their organization or not having full buy-in. You want to really spend as much effort as you can getting to the level of these users. And anyone has thoughts? Veronica, I want to start with you if you have thoughts around that, and then move to other people if you do.
Yeah. I mean, I would be curious to hear from other folks, as I work with customers. I'm not the one setting the like testing campaigns, so just be curious on your own thoughts. But yeah, I mean, I think this is definitely like an area where a lot of customers are investing either like in their A/B testing strategy, or maybe they're also using things like chat or in-app guides to help experiment a bit if there's like an increase in the desired outcome by implementing those like kind of like in-app triggers for customers to take action or to potentially change their behavior. So I think that's more where like I think we've seen a lot more focused in our customer base, as well as like just like typical A/B testing use cases. So I think I'd actually be more interested to hear from other folks just to see like what are some of the, I guess, like interesting ways that you've applied like A/B testing in like your own products.
Thank you, Veronica. Anyone wants to share their thoughts? Andre, please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, maybe process-wise, I really want to emphasize what you said before about even setting a hypothesis and having a process in which you do so is just very important. I didn't mention this before, but one of the clients that I work with is Google. And as surprising as it is, there's a lot of people inside a Google organization who has no clue about how A/B testing should actually work. So I found in sometimes requests about, oh, can we test this 16 different variations of copy for this specific button? I'm like, sure. That's not the way it works. you know, like if I run an experiment with 16 variations out there, even if I choose to do it with 80% of my traffic, like we're not going to get anything statistically significant from there. So I feel that having a process is definitely important. So with my team, I always try to do that. Like, just the first thing, if you start talking about A/B testing, first thing you need to do, just sit and draw that process. You need to have a clear goal. You need to have your hypothesis, and from one hypothesis you can have 5 different experiments that you have an idea to run, right? So prioritize them at the same time. The same way you prioritize features, prioritize your experiments, choose the one that you think is going to be getting you like a confirmation of that hypothesis faster, and really try to have that process in which you really account for doing things like choosing the metrics that matter and all that. So in regards to specific experiments that I've done, I actually do like a lot of big features that I launch in products. I actually have this process in which eventually they become a test, not necessarily A/B testing, but what I do is I do user interviews at the beginning just to model the feature, to understand what I want to launch. But then at some point before launching it, and it's not like a blue-green strategy in which I launch partially, but I try to set an experiment and run that feature with a certain amount of people just to understand how it's behaving and things that I might learn from that experience in order to roll out the actual feature eventually. So I actually use it as a leverage for early testing of features. But for A/B testing as well, of course, different variations of we had this product in which we had like a booker, the one that you would have on any you know, ticket, you're buying flight tickets or something like that. So we had like a booker, but for content, to find the right content that you were looking for, and experimenting with the different ways in which you can do that, whether you use this drop down or you use another way for users to choose that experience. That can give you some relevant insights about what might have happened or not. But I always find interesting to do first user interviews on that, or in which you can actually see that interaction, understand what is the problem before trying to go out there and testing with actual users or a big percentage of users, because yeah, maybe you're testing something that is not as good. So I really try to have something very solid when I go into testing, so I can really focus on the things that matter and not just that I'm testing an experience that I know that is not working.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good reminder, I think, to look at it from a process perspective. I think typically in I would say engineering-led companies, you would see experiments that, you know, a product manager would cringe that these were actually seen by actual users. And Google is notorious for being an engineering-led organization, so I can see that happening. Also, love your focus on data. This really came up multiple times through the conversation. Looking at the raised hands, I can actually share an experimentation incident. So we are a productivity tool, and like your typical SaaS software, we are user license based. So we have licenses for the users who typically go frequently to the product in order to answer RFPs. But these people require collaboration from different people in the organization. And usually companies do not want to pay a full license for the whole year for someone who's gonna log into the platform once every maybe 6 weeks. So usually what we have seen, going back to user behavior, what we've seen happening is that they would email, for example, part of the RFP to someone outside the product to answer, and then they would copy paste that back into the product. So we've been experimenting with different types of licenses that are obviously cheaper, and then they would entail limited access to the platform. So we're now experimenting with a type of license that would allow the user persona here is SMEs, so subject matter experts, to go into the platform and only be able to see parts of the RFP. So that would be the parts that are assigned to them, and they wouldn't have access to other parts of the platform, specifically the knowledge management part. And so that's what I just mentioned was the hypothesis of how the product is adopted in the organization. And the experiment we currently have in place is we're giving that for free to our existing customers and seeing how much how much it sticks. And that would validate our understanding of the hypothesis. And then once the experiment is done, we can then take feedback from it and decide, oh, we're actually going to go to market with this type of license and have that price for it based on the adoption that we have seen. Or, oh, we're just gonna scrap that. No one really was interested in that except a couple of people. And that, I think, is the right way to go about it. Anyone else wants to use something, to share something related to, yeah, Amin, please go ahead.
I want to share with you an experience with our product in wellness. It was a mobile application for tracking actually people's behavior, nutrition behavior. In many wellness applications like this, for example, MyFitnessPal and these kinds of applications, you see that for data entry, they have a procedure. First, they actually, as a user, you have to select that is it a meal for what is the food related to which meal, for example, is it breakfast, or is it lunch, or no, it's just a snack. And we compare and analyze a lot of mobile applications in this segment, and we saw that many of them use this procedure. First, you select your meal, and after that, you select the nutrition. But as we see the user's behavior, we found that people usually enter their data at night. So it doesn't matter that you, for example, select the meal. They just want to enter their nutrition behavior. So we suggest to actually change this procedure and just people search for their meals and enter the nutrition that they eat. And but we try to actually experiment this with limited users as a A/B testing, and we found that maybe because people's mental model was to the previous type of procedures, people feel uncomfortable. But after I can say a couple of weeks, we saw that the behavior would change, and people are more comfortable with the new style of data entry. So I think sometimes we have to wait for the changes because at first people think that maybe the previous procedure was better, and after some time they will get used to it. So that was my actually experience in this area.
Okay, so it's good that you had the learning to work on from that. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else wants to share something around experimentation or user behavior in general? Priyanka, please go ahead.
Sure. I think sometimes too much experimentation also can make your users go away from your platform. So we were running a lot of A/B tests related to pop-ups. These pop-ups were related to payments, and we were trying to onboard users, and we were trying to improve their activation and retention in the product. What we observed was like the people whom we showed too much pop-ups related to payments, they ended up leaving our product, and they were not able to be we were not able to retain them for more than 28 days, so we never onboarded them properly. So I think that's also one thing we should be taking care of. Like, we run a lot of A/B tests, and how these A/B tests altogether can affect your major metrics in the product. So we did not observe it in the individual A/B tests that we were running. We observed this in the onboarding journey of the users.
Yes. So I think the thought that comes to mind, thank you. This is a great learning experience that you just shared. I think my thoughts are around having guardrails and putting metrics that sort of counterbalance each other, so that you make sure that you're not leaning one way at the expense of another. And I think at a high level, that would be when you want to have adoption and retention, for example. And my thoughts go to going about it in a gradual manner, so that sort of, again, pushing more the spirit of experimentation. So before doing these pop-ups on a wider scale, do them, for example, for beta users. Before doing notifications for XYZ, just start with X and then see the adoption that comes from the users. And I think one final thought around experimentation is that we've discussed that product managers want to do it, but perhaps not the rest of the organization is as interested, or it, as Andre shared, it sometimes leans towards the other extreme. One resource that I found useful discussing this was, it was a podcast actually by Nick Caldwell, and he was a CPO, and it's titled A Toolkit for Hyperscale, and in it he talked about building muscle for experimentation in the organization. So that would be one resource I would share. So we have 5 minutes left, and I think this has been a great conversation, but if anyone has any final thought to share in a minute or so, please go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I could just reiterate also, like we talked about this a bit, but just when you are going through a testing environment, we have seen customers that kind of forget the steps of like identifying goals and hypotheses before starting their testing roadmap. So definitely have had experience where customers are spending a lot of resources and not really moving a needle because they don't know what they're actually trying to move. So that was talked about a bit here, but just kind of going back to the basics, I think that can just be something important to continue to keep in mind. Otherwise, you'll be spending a lot of valuable resources on testing that might not actually have an impact on your business.
Yes, that's a great thought to end with. I think to always keep the business goals in mind and take it from there. Thank you, Veronica. And thank you everyone for the great discussion. I really enjoyed it myself. I hope you did as well. And please enjoy the rest of the festival. Thank you very much.